One question that will expose a narcissist in less than 10 seconds, and the answer will shake you. Ask them this: when was the last time you were truly wrong about something important? Then watch. Watch their eyes twitch. Watch their mind scramble for a way to protect the mask. Because a narcissist doesn't admit fault, they rewrite history. They'll stutter, deflect, or spin a tale so grand it'll feel like you're talking to a politician, not a person. You want to know the truth about narcissists. They don't love you. They love your attention. They don't care about your feelings, they care about your reactions. And if you ever threaten to shatter the illusion they've built about themselves, they will turn on you like a cornered animal. What makes this terrifying isn't just that they lie, it's that they believe their own lies. They live in a delusion so deep, even truth becomes a threat. But once you ask that question, they can't hide anymore. Because normal people, humble people will admit when they're wrong. They'll reflect. They'll grow. But a narcissist sees being wrong as a weakness. They will do anything to avoid it. Anything. Here's the question that cracks the mask wide open. When was the last time you were truly wrong about something important? That's it. Just that. And yet, it's one of the most psychologically devastating questions you can ask a narcissist because it corners them into a moment of raw vulnerability they're incapable of handling. You're not looking for an answer. You're watching their reaction. That moment of hesitation, the forced smile, the nervous glance, the immediate attempt to shift the topic or twist the question into something else, that's the tell. You've hit the nerve. You've disrupted the script they've rehearsed for years, maybe decades. You've asked them to admit what their entire identity is built to avoid: fault, weakness, imperfection. Most people, when asked that question, will pause, reflect, maybe even admit something painful. Because that's what it means to be human. We make mistakes, we learn, we grow. But narcissists, they don't operate on the same emotional frequency. Their sense of self isn't rooted in truth, it's rooted in performance. The false self they project is flawless, always right, always the victim or the hero, never the one to blame. Admitting fault feels like psychological death to them. That's why they react with defensiveness, sarcasm, even rage. Because the question isn't just a probe, it's a mirror. And narcissists spend their lives avoiding mirrors that reflect reality. The genius of this question lies in its simplicity. It bypasses their charm, their manipulation tactics, and their ability to dominate a conversation. You're not attacking, you're inviting self-reflection, something they claim to do but never actually engage in. That's why this single moment can be a turning point. It's the first time they feel the pressure of truth in a space they can't immediately control. It puts the power back in your hands without shouting, accusing, or defending yourself. You're not debating, you're observing. And in that silence, you'll see everything you need to know. This isn't about confrontation, it's about revelation. The truth has always been there, but now it's undeniable. The story collapses, the illusion cracks, and what's left is a person desperately trying to maintain a lie in the face of a question that demands honesty. That's when you realize you were never crazy. You were just too honest for someone who couldn't face themselves. Here's the terrifying truth. Narcissists don't just lie to you, they lie to themselves. And they're so good at it, they believe it. They don't just bend reality, they live in a version of it where they are always right, always innocent, always justified. That's what makes them so dangerous. It's not just manipulation, it's delusion. And when someone believes their own lies, there's no reasoning with them. You can bring evidence, timelines, receipts, they'll twist it all. Because accountability doesn't fit in their version of the story. They'd rather destroy a relationship than admit they were wrong. They don't change the facts, they change the narrative. And in their narrative, they are never the problem. This is why arguments with narcissists feel like emotional warfare. You think you're trying to resolve something. You're trying to reach understanding. But they're playing a different game. They're not looking for truth. They're looking for control. They weaponize confusion. They twist your words, rewrite your intentions, make you question your own memory. And it works. Because you assume they're engaging in good faith just like you are. But they're not. They're not seeking peace. They're protecting the false self, the carefully crafted identity that cannot be wrong, cannot be weak, cannot be seen as flawed. And here's where it gets darker. This isn't just a strategy, it's a survival mechanism. Somewhere deep down, usually in childhood, they learned that being wrong meant being unloved, unsafe, invisible. So they built a mask, and now they've worn it for so long, they can't take it off without falling apart. They don't lie out of malice, they lie because the truth terrifies them, but that doesn't make the damage any less real. Just because someone's pain explains their behavior doesn't mean it excuses it. You're not obligated to stay in a reality someone else is rewriting every day. When you stop playing along, when you start calling things by their real name, you threaten their entire identity. That's why they fight so hard to keep the lie alive. But that's not your burden to carry. Your sanity, your peace, your truth, they matter more than protecting someone's illusion. You didn't imagine it. You weren't overreacting. That sick feeling in your gut, the confusion, that fog, that silent scream inside your head, it was real. And it had a name. Gaslighting, it's not just manipulation, it's psychological sabotage. A narcissist will convince you that your memory is broken, that your emotions are unreliable, that your intuition is flawed. And they'll do it so subtly, so consistently, that over time you stop trusting yourself altogether. That's not an accident, that's the point. Because if they can make you doubt your own mind, they can control everything. This is what makes gaslighting so brutal. It doesn't look like abuse from the outside. There are no bruises, no shouting matches. It happens in whispers, in passing comments, in contradictions so small you question whether they even happen. But they add up, and slowly they erase you. You start apologizing for things you didn't do. You start hiding your feelings, questioning your tone, replaying conversations over and over just to make sense of them. And still, nothing adds up because they keep moving the goalposts. A narcissist doesn't need to raise their voice to dominate you. All they need is doubt, a single crack in your certainty. That's where they wedge themselves in. They'll say, you're too sensitive when they've just crossed a line. That never happened when you bring up a clear memory. I was just joking when you call out disrespect. They're rewriting your reality in real time, and you're slowly losing your grip on what's true and what's not. But here's the breakthrough. If you feel confused, it's probably because someone is trying to confuse you. Confusion is not a flaw in you, it's a tactic used on you. And the moment you name it, the moment you say, wait, that is gaslighting, everything starts to shift. You realize this fog wasn't yours to carry. You weren't broken, you were being broken down. But now you're waking up, now you're seeing clearly. And clarity is the first step back to your power. They don't love you. And I know that's hard to hear, but it's the truth that sets you free. Narcissists don't fall in love with people, they fall in love with mirrors, with reflections, with what you give them. Attention, validation, admiration, these are their oxygen. They crave being seen as powerful, desirable, irreplaceable, but real intimacy, real emotional connection. That terrifies them. Because to connect deeply, you have to be vulnerable. And narcissists have spent their entire lives building armor around their vulnerability. They don't want to be known, they want to be worshipped. What you thought was love was actually supply. You were feeding something in them, filling a hole they refused to acknowledge. The praise, the compliments, the dependency, it's not about bonding. It's about control. You became a character in their script, not a partner in their life. And the moment you stopped performing, the moment you needed something real, support, honesty, empathy, that's when everything changed. That's when the love turned cold, the admiration turned into contempt, and the person you thought cared for you became unrecognizable. You see, narcissists don't seek relationships, they seek hosts, people they can drain, control, and manipulate to maintain the illusion of superiority. And here's the cruelest part, they often start by mirroring everything you ever wanted. They become your dream person, your perfect match, not because it's real, but because it hooks you. And once you're hooked, the mask starts to slip. That's when the devaluation begins. That's when the real damage is done. Because now you're addicted to a version of them that never actually existed. It's not your fault you believed it. It's human to want connection, to believe in love. But what you were caught in wasn't love, it was a transaction disguised as intimacy. The narcissist wasn't loving you, they were using you to love themselves. And when you finally see it for what it is, the spell breaks. You stop chasing closure. You stop trying to fix what was never real. And you start rebuilding the one thing they tried hardest to destroy, your sense of worth. Here's what they fear more than being exposed, being ignored. When you stop playing the game, when you stop reacting, defending, explaining, justifying something terrifying happens to a narcissist, you become untouchable because they never had control over you. They only ever had control over your reactions. And when those reactions stop, so does their power. Narcissists don't lose control, they lose supply. And supply isn't love, it's attention. It's emotional energy, positive or negative, it doesn't matter. As long as they can provoke a response, they still own a piece of your mind. But the moment you go quiet, the moment you detach not with anger, but with clarity, you disrupt their entire system, they'll panic. They'll try to draw you back in with love bombing, guilt trips, or sudden vulnerability. It's all strategy because they're not looking to reconnect. They're looking to re-engage, to get you back into the loop, back into the chaos. And that's the moment you have to remember this isn't personal. This is about control. They're not missing you, they're missing the control they had over you. Walking away isn't just leaving a relationship. It's reclaiming your reality. It's saying, I will no longer be a character in your fantasy. And yes, it hurts. It's disorienting. It feels like grief, because in many ways it is. But you're not grieving the person, you're grieving the illusion. And once you see the difference, you start to come back to life. You stop seeking validation from someone who was never capable of giving it. You stop questioning yourself and start trusting your own inner voice again. You don't heal by fixing the narcissist. You heal by breaking the cycle. And sometimes that healing begins in silence, in the choice to walk away without explanation, without drama, just truth. That's where the real power lies. Not in confrontation, but in freedom, because the strongest move you'll ever make is simply not playing their game. Here's the truth. No one tells you you don't need closure from a narcissist to close the chapter. You don't need an apology. You don't need them to understand the damage they caused, because they never will. Their ego won't let them. But that doesn't mean you stay stuck. That doesn't mean you keep bleeding from wounds they refuse to see. You heal when you decide it's over. You take your power back the moment you stop waiting for them to give it. That one question, that shift in awareness, that moment of clarity, it's all you need to begin again. And it's not about revenge. It's not about proving them wrong. It's about you remembering who you were before they rewrote your story. It's about realizing you were never weak. You were exhausted from carrying both your pain and their illusion. You were never too sensitive. You were tuned into truth in a world that punished you for it. And now you're done shrinking to fit their comfort. You're done twisting yourself into someone they might finally love. You were never meant to survive in someone else's fantasy. You were born to live in your own reality. So here's your call to action. Stop giving your energy to people who feed on your confusion. Start investing that energy into rebuilding yourself, reconnecting with your voice, your power, your boundaries. Share this message with someone who's still in the fog, still questioning their worth, still replaying a script that was never theirs to begin with. Because the moment you speak truth into this silence, you become the disruption. You become the end of the cycle. So ask the question, watch what happens. Then walk quietly, powerfully, completely. You don't need their permission. You only need your own. And that right there is the beginning of everything.